Do you listen to the wisdom of your heart when it tells you something doesn't feel good, or your gut feelings and intuition when something feels off? And are you listening when it's telling you that something feels amazing? My name is Heather Feather. I am the owner of Rare Bird Medicine, and today's topic is the beat. This heartbeat of mine, I believe, is the most intelligent presence in my vessel. I personally believe there are three intelligences present. The first intelligence is your heart. Your heart is always honest. It tells you immediately when something doesn't feel good. Often what doesn't feel good is the thoughts you are thinking. The average human has anywhere from 7,000 to 70,000 thoughts per day. And the average two-legged has 80% of those thoughts to be negative in nature. And so when the thinking or the air of our minds goes dark, the heart will often tell you, this is unpleasant. I think this is something from which we should part. And we often are not listening to that ancient wisdom, which many believe is connected to the soul or a more subconscious, superconscious, or higher level of consciousness wisdom that is letting us know much quicker than the mind can, which is pretty darn fast itself, you're not on the right path, And I think the second intelligence is our gut microbiome. Much of whether or not we are depressed or happy, much of our immune system, much of our overall wellness actually is present from the gut and the gut microbiome. And so I do believe that this is a great intelligence in our body. And one of the ways that we are able to get ourselves into a regulated, healthier state is paying attention to gut microbiome health. The third intelligence is your mind, your brain, your IQ. This has been described in a variety of ways. Although those are distinct things, they are often superimposed and comparable in many people's minds. And the IQ, or your intelligence, as opposed to your EQ, or emotional intelligence, can tell you things that are false. It can say you're unlovable, or that person doesn't like you because they didn't show up, or it can make up stories that are not based in information that has been received from another that would let you know what the truth of the situation is. They're never going to forgive me because it's like, Heather's one of the most forgiving beings in the world. Like, all are forgiven. All are forgiven by me. If you feel like you've wronged me, you've already been forgiven many times by me. I often let the spirit realm know when they have their life review. Here it is. Heather forgives you. You were forgiven here at our school by me for assaulting me or whatever it was. You know what I mean? Forgiven. When we know better, we'll do better. I trust you to get home eventually. My heart is deeply honest. And when I was summoned to the shamanic path at 42, I was working for an organic superfood company with amazing, dope individuals. And I had done a lot of tarot readings, astrology readings, numerology readings for free, just loving to share with my friends. And all of those beautiful souls that I had shared that energy with got me a reading with a shaman that was definitely outside of my budget at the time. And that beautiful soul light walker wound up becoming one of my greatest mentors in this life. And he summoned me to the shamanic path. And around that time, he told me many things, but one of the things that he did on that call is he notified me that I'm a powerful and adept medical intuitive. I tend to offer it for free. And it's important that I understand that energy exchange is okay for me, that I have a tendency to want to jump from the bottom of the mountain to the top of the mountain with great devotion and force, and that it serves my soul better to take a few steps up the mountain and recognize the different vantage point I stand in as I look at where I was energetically, cognitively, emotionally, and then take a few more steps and look and watch one's progression as we spiral upward in our awareness of knowing better so that we can do better, which has been a great wisdom for me. But another thing that happened, he said, you'll start having dreams. I thought he meant sleeping dreams. He said, you're very, very busy. And I was very busy at the time. He said, you're going to start having dreams in which you're going to be given downloads. And I did. I started having daydreams at work where I would be doing stuff and I would just, boom, just like a packet of information would drop in my head. And I'd be like, whoa, I've never, that's called claircognizance, where you receive knowledge or information or gnosis or the truth from a source that is beyond the self. And you suddenly know something you didn't know before. It showed up in a lot of different ways in my life. And that started happening. And one of the gnosis that I downloaded was to start listening to the highest wisdom, listen to my heart. The reason they call it gut gut feeling to highest wisdoms is because, you are going to get a sense. Intuition is many things, and Heather teaches many classes on the clairsenses, and that's a long list of things. But the people globally know often clairaudience or psychic sight, or the ability to psychically see things in one's mind's eye, or clairaudience, psychic hearing, the ability to hear things from one's ally spirits or the spirit realm. There's also claircognizance, which is sudden psychic knowing, and then there's clairsentience, sudden psychic feeling. And I started getting a lot more downloads of clarity as I started listening to my heart. I started developing more of my clairsenses as I started listening to this ancient, wise entity called the heart of my matter that started letting me know when things felt off for me. I started moving away from that which did not feel good, whether it made sense to anyone else or not. This doesn't feel good. This environment feels like I'm not a part of this community, but instead being treated like I'm a piece of gum on the bottom of everyone's shoe. This environment feels like I'm not being honored for the truth of who I am, and am being projected upon by others as a perception that I am not. I started listening to my true wisdom piece. If you've ever read the book Emotional Intelligence, it's a phenomenal book. But one of the things that is espoused by Daniel in that book is that it's viable that emotional intelligence, EQ, is the higher intelligence to IQ. And it's part of where I started to develop this philosophy ages ago when I was working for a nonprofit with teenagers, is that, if you are brilliant, so genius is a 140 plus IQ. If you are a genius even, you can be extremely intelligent, but lack emotional intelligence and the empathy that is required to sell your brilliant ideas to the world. So you can lack the ability to do anything with your brilliance because you constantly disconnect from relationships because you haven't developed the emotional quotient, right? And so Heather Feather is constantly working to develop herself physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. And when it comes to romantic relationships, I've had 2 iterations of incarnation in my 5 decades deep where I've flirted with the idea of not being monogamous and just being open to and letting people know, always being clear and articulating that. And I had that iteration in my 20s, and I had it again in my 50s. And, I was experiencing people that, as I usually do, that I had tremendous chemistry with. I have a great ability to be attracted. I have a tremendous libido. I have a great and healthy sex drive. That's never been a problem for me. And I'm able to elicit the response that leads to, my desired response in bed. And the thing is even though a two-legged can hand me perhaps a beautiful physical form or fulfillment in the physical world with sexual interaction, they may not necessarily be handing me IQ or intellectual development. Many people are sapiosexuals. They're drawn to intellectual intelligence and being attracted to intelligence. They may not be able to hand me EQ or emotional intelligence. They might be more infantile and adolescent when it comes to their emotional development, or spiritually. Historically, Heather would date atheists and agnostics. Now I understand that if you are not developing your spiritual self, which I deeply know as the largest part of development in my being, then you're only ever able to hand me 75% of what I consider to be the developed self. I'm not right about that for you. I'm right about that for me. And I do find it quite boring as somebody who studies spirit and has communed with spirit her entire life to be with somebody that has no connection to that aspect of self. I think the burden of proof is weighty if one really wants to look at what has been scientifically studied around spirituality. There's much evidence here. And I've really, really wanted a divine partner. And a divine partner for me, like me, works to develop the 4 quadrants. And this year, I've come to accept that it's okay if I walk this journey alone. I'm in a space where I accept what is handed instead of pushing against so that I can evolve myself. You can go to Rare Bird Medicine and click on the classes link if you want to develop a relationship with your intuition and your heart. This August, we will look into that matter together. And you can always subscribe to Rare Bird Medicine on YouTube Like and subscribe there. Heather Feather always loves your thoughts. Amun.